All right, so you just checked out a camera. We need to make sure that you have everything set so that way you can take pictures. I'm gonna go through how you can solve some problems, how you can use parts of the camera and everything. You can fast forward, rewind, do all that kind of stuff through the video to kind of help you out. But initially, you'll check out a camera. Once you get the camera, you might have a camera bag that has both extra lens and the camera in it. But first thing you're gonna wanna do is take that camera out. Okay, you're gonna want to open up the battery door, and then you want to check to make sure that you have a battery and a memory card in there. I'm just gonna do something right now, which is just check the memory card and make sure that the little lever here on the side of the memory card is moved all the way up so that it is unlocked and it can be used, okay? Now, after we've done that, you can go ahead and turn on the camera up top here, switch that on. And once you've done that, let's go ahead and do this. You wanna make sure that you first have battery. About half a battery will be fine for you to borrow it and use it for a few days, but if it's lower than that and it's blinking at you, that's no good. The next thing that we wanna do is we're gonna clear out everything on the memory card. So to do that, you're gonna go ahead and press menu. From menu, you want to go over to the first little gear, or not gear, but wrench and whatever icon. And you want to go down to format card. And then we're going to go ahead and do OK. We're going to clear everything out, make sure that that card is meant to work with this camera. Okay. From there, I'm going to go ahead and just get out of the screen. You can hit menu again, or I'm going to go ahead and hit the shutter button, which is right here. And then we're gonna go through a couple other options. So I'm gonna double check to see what kind of image type that I am using. So to do that, there's a couple ways. I could go to menu. I can go to the first camera icon and then go down to my image quality and then choose one of these options. You're gonna wanna stick with the large JPEG, which is this one, or RAW. You can also do RAW plus JPEG. If you know how to use those file types, it makes things easier, but by default, I would just kind of go with the large JPEG to start with. Okay, so once I have that selected, then I can move on to a couple other things. Now on the back of the camera, there's lots of things that we can change. To get to some of these menu items using this Canon Rebel T7, I'm gonna go ahead and do the little Q button right here. And then that is gonna allow me to kind of navigate around all these different options. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do like a double check on this picture style thing that I've got right here. Click on that, make sure that's on auto. If for some reason you are on some of these other options, it might kind of make your picture look a little bit nicer, whatever, but the main one we wanna check for is this monochrome is not on, unless you are intentionally trying to take black and white pictures. Monochrome is gonna take a black and white photo. And so you're not going to want to do that for my class, because you can always take a color photo and turn it black and white later very easily versus trying to do it the other way around. Okay. Now, once we've got that kind of set up, we need to go through a few other options. These are some problems you might run into. You could take a picture and it looks very blue or orange. In that case, you need to change your white balance. You could either hit the down arrow right here, or you could hit the Q button and then go to your white balance. I would suggest using automatic white balance if you have no idea what's going on. If you are in a particular type of sunlight, then you can start making some adjustments. So we could do sunlight, you have shade and cloudy, and you adjust these, and that way your colors appear more natural, and they should be better looking than having that weird all orange tint over everything type of picture. Okay. Now, after that, we need to go through and we need to think about focus. So we can hit the AF button right here. You can also go Q and go down to where it says one shot, but I'm going to go AF, click on the side button, and then I need to choose whether I want one shot, AI focus, or AI servo. Really, it's just one shot where you focus and it stays focused at that point, or you can go to AI servo, and that is going to be constantly trying to focus, never stops, and then just lets you keep taking as many pictures as you can while your subject is moving around. AI focus is supposed to kind of be a bridge between the two, where it kind of locks on, And then if it senses that something moves, it'll readjust. But my suggestion would be to go either one shot or servo, depending on what you're doing. So in my case, I'm gonna go with one shot. One shot's gonna allow me to get a focus lock. A focus lock is achieved by pressing and holding the shutter button. And when you do that, it will, once you can actually find something to focus on, you'll either hear a beep or you'll see a red flash while you're looking through the viewfinder at your focus point. Something that's important for focusing is to choose where you want to focus, and you can do that by choosing the location of your focus point on this button right here. So I could press that button and then I can go to a different location if I want. If I'm trying to use like the rule of thirds and position something on an intersection point, I could use this point or that point, sorry, not that point, or that point, or this one, or that one. And that kind of would be like I had my rule of thirds set up at those intersection points. So you can use that as kind of a guide. I'm gonna go ahead and keep that on the middle. And then if I'm gonna do a focus lock, I can focus on my subject. Once I get the beep, I can reframe, position my subject in the frame where I want, and then I can take the picture and it will remain focused at that distance, okay? Next option would be drive on your camera, and drive basically allows you to take a single shot, continuous shooting, which means as we're going with the camera, its fastest rate of taking pictures. And then we also have a self timer, 2-second timer, and a continuous timer, which will just take a series of pictures after the timer runs out. Now, for single shooting, that's great for like portraits and everything. Continuous shooting, good for sports. And the timer, the 2-second timer works out really best. The only time you'd use that is if you're on a tripod. So that way, after you press the shutter down, then you don't get any camera shake on that one. Timer, I think you can figure that one out, okay? The next thing that we're gonna talk about is metering. So when you are surveying your picture and you're looking at where you're trying to measure light from, you have the option to change what location or what general focus you have on where you want to meter light from. So the way that you can use that would be to go to the Q button, work your way down, go to your metering options, and you can use evaluative. Evaluative is basically like an automatic mode. It's looking at your entire scene and seeing what's best. There's partial metering, which is a specific area, you know, right in the center of your frame. And then there's also center weighted, which just adds an emphasis on everything in the middle, okay? For partial metering, the real trick here would be to use an automatic mode on the camera, such as the program mode, TV mode, or AV mode. And then what you can do is, the way that I like to do this would be to first look at my subject. I would measure light on them using partial by holding the star button, and then I'll focus, press and hold the focus button, focus on my subject, and then I can reframe and then take my picture that way, okay? If that is a little bit more than you feel like doing, you can always go back to the evaluative or center weighted and see what those options do. Evaluative will use what the camera sees best, and center weighted and partial are your choice to emphasize something different in your photo. Now there's another thing that you can do with that metering, which is to also, in the automatic modes, use a thing called exposure compensation. What that does is it will either brighten or darken your picture by removing or adding light to it. And so you can do that by this little plus and minus button right here. If I press and hold on it, it'll allow me to spin the control dial, and I can adjust my photo to either go to like a negative number that'll make it dark or a positive number that'll make it bright. Ideally, you want to basically start at 0. If you're taking pictures and every single picture turns out bright or every single picture turns out dark, and you are using the program, TV, or AV mode, then that is a good thing to double check to make sure that it is not set to like -2 and every single picture then turns out 2 stops dark, okay? Some other options on your camera, since we've got this set up, there's the, well, first let's just go through controls really quick. So you have your shutter speed and aperture and ISO. Those are the 3 main controls that you would use on your camera to adjust, or mechanical controls on your camera. So I'm just going to go through how you can adjust each one of those. In the program mode, AV, TV, and manual mode, you can adjust your ISO. ISO, you click on the button right there. ISO 100 is a very good image quality. ISO 6400, not so great. I like to think about this like you're gonna have artifacts in your pictures, like noise and everything. And so I like to think of like ISO 100 as like 100 little extra dots on your picture from noise versus 6400 dots on your picture from noise, which would be used in that. But really what's happening is you are altering the way that you're processing your image, and you're trying to add extra light into it. But really, I would just take pictures at ISO 100 and boost it later in post. If you're taking your pictures, it's kind of the exact same way, rather than trust the little computer in here versus the computer that you're using. But beyond that, we also have aperture. Aperture is in the lens. You can end up finding out exactly what aperture you can get to by looking at each lens. So this can have a aperture opening, maximum aperture of 3.5 to 5.6, depending on where you're zoomed in. And that is letting light into the lens. And then you also have your shutter speed, which is the amount of time that you're recording your picture. Okay, so each one of these modes allows you to do different things. The program mode allows you to basically set ISO, and you can also change your exposure compensation to make the picture brighter or darker. And that's roughly about it, besides a couple other peripheral things like white balance. If you go to the TV mode is going to allow you to use a shutter priority, which is going to allow you to set two different things. You could set your shutter speed, so you could have a fast shutter speed, like 1,000th of a second, freeze motion. You could do a slower shutter speed and try and blur motion, like 1/8. And you could also try doing like a longer exposure, anything 1 second or longer, up to 30 seconds. And this mode will then allow you to do that, okay? You also can change your ISO in this mode, and then the computer in the camera will then figure out the appropriate f number or aperture, so that way you can get a picture that turns out. You can also make adjustments to that using your exposure compensation, and it will then use that information to alter what aperture setting you have, so that way you can accomplish a photo. I would suggest if you are trying to take a picture and it is most important to you to have a particular shutter speed, to set the ISO at auto or 100, and then the aperture at whatever the computer tells you, okay? Just like that mode, we can also do the same thing with AV. AV is gonna be aperture priority, which means you set the aperture, which is gonna control your depth of field, and then you, the lower the F number, the shallower the depth of field, so blurry background versus very clear background, okay? And you can set the ISO, just like I just mentioned, and we'll find the correct shutter speed to get your picture. If you want to take it a step further, then you can go to the manual mode. The manual mode allows you full control over everything. And so when you make an adjustment to one setting, it will then make an adjustment to the others. Now, right now, ISO is on auto. If I have this set to a particular number, then as I go to change my shutter speed or aperture, depending on what I am trying to adjust, then I can work on using my light meter to tell me whether I have enough light in my picture to capture an image that comes out as I am seeing it, okay? Now, those are all the modes. We have one last thing, and that would be changing a lens. Changing a lens on a camera. I'm gonna go ahead and just turn off the camera for right now. Then if I set the camera down, on the side of the lens, there is a button that you can press and hold down, and then I can twist the camera's lens, take off the previous lens that was on there, and then I can replace it with a different lens. I'm going to take off the end cap there, and then we are going to line it up. So you either have a red dot on your lens or a white square, and we're going to go red dot to red dot. So we'll position these so that way they go together, and then I'm going to twist until I get a click where everything is attached correctly, okay? Do not leave a lens back exposed. So we're gonna take this back cap and we're gonna go ahead and screw that on there so that it is set up and ready to then be used. If you have a lens cap, we can put that on, but we'll go ahead and put that back in the bag. Now, another thing is we do not want to store our camera like this, with the camera, with the inside mirror and image sensor and shutter and everything like that exposed. We don't want dirt and dust and everything in here. So make sure that there's always a lens attached or that there is a body cap attached. But no matter what, that part of the camera should not be exposed. Hope that helps.